Hi, my name is Greg Jones, and today I would like to talk with you about the women of the American Revolution, and specifically Abigail Adams. Now, most of us think of the American Revolution, I'm sure we think of figures like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John and Samuel Adams, but there was a whole other gender that participated in the events of the American Revolutionary War. Women were crucial in the maintaining of the American home front. They were very important in conserving supplies. Robert Middlekauff in The Glorious Cause used a popular slogan, and I quote, "Save your money and save your country," end quote. Women were also very important in forming spinning societies, which used cloth to create clothes which they would market and sell in the local newspapers. They also occasionally took the law into their own hands. An account by Abigail Adams and other women in 1777 went and dealt with a merchant that was hoarding coffee. Abigail Adams recorded the account, and I quote, "A number of females, some say 100, some say more, assembled with carts and trucks, marched down to the warehouse and demanded the keys, which he refused to deliver, upon which one of them seized him by his neck and tossed him into the cart. Upon finding no quarter, he delivered the keys, when they tipped up the cart and discharged him, then opened the warehouse, hoisted out the coffee themselves, put into the trucks, and drove off." End quote. Women were not passive observers of the American Revolutionary War. They were very active participants. They also followed around the Continental Army, though George Washington did not like this practice because he believed that squabbling women could hurt the morale of the army. In the army, women helped by cleaning and mending clothes and helping the sick and wounded. Now, let's focus by shifting our attention to Abigail Adams because she was a woman that was far advanced in her era. Abigail Smith was born on November 11, 1744. She was born to a wealthy Reverend father and a prominent mother. They raised her to have religious morals and reasoning. And in 1759, she met her future husband, John Adams, though he did not have a great view on her at that time. In 1761, they bonded over their shared heightened intellect. And in October 25th, 1764, the couple were married. One of the biggest themes in Abigail's life was her desire for education. When she was younger, she could not go to schools in New England because they were primarily restricted to men. And when she was younger, she did have access to her father's library, which was very extensive. She would read these books and share many of these ideas with her friends and families. In an article by Ellen Dodge in the Historical Journal of Massachusetts, the author provides 3 interesting quotes that gives insight into Abigail Adams' heart for education for women. Her first is in a letter to her husband where she said, and I quote, "You remark upon the deficiency of education in your countrymen. If you complain of neglect of education in sons, what shall I say with regard to daughters, who every day experience the want of it?" End quote. She believed that women wanted education, they desired it, and she wanted the women to get the education that they desired and deserved. In an overall comment on the situation of women's education, Abigail Adams is quoted as saying, "I regret the trifling, narrow, contracted education of the females of my own country," end quote. She further built upon this statement by saying, "If we mean to have heroes, statesmen, and philosophers, we should have learned women," end quote. She was also a very important advisor to John Adams. During the congressional session in 1776, on March 31st, she wrote a letter to her husband, which is recorded in the Founders Online National Archives. In the letter, she said, and I quote, "In the new code of laws which I suppose would be necessary for you to make, I desire you would remember the ladies, and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands," end quote. Many believe that this issue was directed at domestic violence, which was rampant in the colonial homes. Abigail Adams was also the second First Lady of the United States, succeeding Martha Washington. And it was noted by an article by David Shields and Fredrika Teute in the Journal of the Early Republic that when she arrived in Philadelphia on March 6, 1796, that it only took her 2 days to repair the household that the Washingtons had left in disrepair. During John's presidency, she continued her role as advisor and helped him in many aspects and even reported news to the newspaper. She was the first press secretary, so to speak. And from the life of Abigail Adams, we can find a woman committed to furthering the rights of her fellow women, especially in the field of education.